Hang on 1 second. There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. It is Lisa Cara here from Imbalanced Pilates, and I wanted to thank you for watching this feature interview. I'm really honored today to have JoAnne Silver Jones with me. So welcome, JoAnne. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
So JoAnne is a retired professor, an author, mother, grandmother, and wife, and a traumatic brain injury survivor. And JoAnne is the author of Headstrong, Surviving a Traumatic Brain Injury. It's been such a pleasure to read this book, JoAnne. You've definitely poured your heart out, and it's really been an honor to read. And I'm so thankful to have you here. So, welcome.
Great.
So, tell us more about writing the book. Tell us a little bit more about writing the book, and congratulations, it came out in
November of 2019.
November of 2019, and congrats again. And tell us a bit about, so this is in that first book, it is a recounting of about going through your injury and the support that you had. But tell our listeners about it.
I'd be happy to. So one of the ways I describe the writing of the book is that the book um, chose me to write it. And it's my story that I never intended to write a book or a memoir. I had done writing professionally, and I like to write, but I didn't think about writing about this event. And I sat down one day and started to write, and then I kept writing and kept writing and kept writing. And that's when I realized that there's a lot that I have to say and want to say, and needed to dig deeper and deeper into uncovering all kinds of links between what happened to me and how I became a traumatic brain injury survivor, and my own history and the social context of the time in which it happened, and really the times that we're still living in. So I then knew that I needed to be part of some writing process, and I found a group led by a professional writer, and it said, year-long manuscript for people who want to complete a manuscript. And I thought, it's talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed up, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I finished a complete first draft, and then went on
And
to.
that was with like a publishing company was that a publishing company, or it was more a writing program?
It was a writing program by a local author. I live in Massachusetts, where there are, every block has a college. So there are a lot of professional writers around here. And it was a group of 6 people, each of us writing a book. And every other week, we each had to submit 40 pages and read everybody's work so we could speak to it. It was very demanding, and that worked for me because I just essentially put my foot on the pedal and kept going, and got great
Well,
feedback.
and I'm sure that would have been really fantastic accountability, like having that writing mastermind and having
Absolutely.
that support to really push
Yeah.
each other in a good way. And
Right. It provided a great structure. Now in some of the writing projects, I can sit down and do it. But I don't think I could have accomplished this without a structure that gave me deadlines and people giving me feedback and then wanting to take it and redraft. So that's how I started this process and finished the process.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then going on to, I love your book cover. It looks beautiful. I have it on your book on Kindle, so don't physically have the book here to show. You show that up for us, please. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's gorgeous. And how was the process in, finding a cover designer and all of that?
Well, the process of getting the book from a completed a well-edited, tight manuscript to being published was not fun. I got what I called really beautiful rejection letters from different editors and agents. Loved the book. It's really engaging, well written, but we're not taking memoirs, or it's too sad, or we're looking for something else.
And
Uh,
that would have been, how was that just going through that because that's a lot, going through a rejection process and all that, let alone dealing with all the heavy emotions of and pain and trauma and everything. It just adds another layer of stuff to deal with. Did you have good support dealing with like just maneuvering through that part of things?
Yeah, I have a wonderful support. My wife she was incredible before I was injured, and more than incredible since. So she was there every step of the way, and I have a great circle of friends and family who were supportive, who read drafts, who loved it. So I was well supported. And there, for me, there's also was something in me that is reminiscent of when I was in the hospital in the very beginning, and got out of bed for the first time and was asked to take a few steps. I wanted to take a few more steps than what I was asked. Before that, I did yoga and I worked out, and I started some body memory of being active, and
Mhm.
I was determined. So I was determined that this book was going to see covers, and it was going to be in some form. What made a big difference is I went to the San Francisco Writers Conference, which is a huge conference, and took a workshop on people who were doing self-publishing and different kinds of publishing. And it was this amazing feeling of being, having some power, some agency over this book. The what gave
Like
the
the decision making process and that.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
no control whatsoever over what happened to me. Uh, the desire to have some control over what I could have control of was has been immense. And so hearing about self-publishing and other ways to get a book out, I felt like, well, there's things I can do.
Hmm.
And I heard about She Writes Press, which is like a hybrid publishing. They screen all books and there's a fee. They also are a well-respected publishing house, and they only work with women writers. And one of their goals is to create a community of women writers. So in addition to their professional artists who did the cover and all of the interior work and proofreading and help with how to enter the world of books, I'm in this incredible community of women authors.
Oh,
Some
wow.
a great deal, some not, of all ages and all backgrounds, and we're incredibly supportive of each other. And that's made such a huge difference that I'm in a world where now I can say and feel honest about saying it that I'm a writer. And
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
you know, they have given me a wonderful gift.
Yeah.
And I have my book is between the covers.
Okay. Yes, I'm having that supportive system, that supportive team of author sisters that will help again push you and be there for you and understand these goals that you have. For myself, with the chapter that I wrote in, I was telling you before, with Women Who Inspire. And again, yes, having that community of authors, of women that are going for their goals and having these dreams. And it's a really special community, wherever you're getting that sense of community from. But yes, having people that you can really reach for your goals for
Absolutely.
is so important. And with one of my favorite quotes in your book, um, and this just develops so much on with writing and the reason why we write. but you had said, I would continue to learn that the distance between silence and voice is calculable. And that really hit me because, yeah, if you've lived, in a way of not speaking up and not, maybe seeing yourself being more silent and things like that, and then to come to where you can use your voice, it's so powerful and inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been a big part of the process, and a big part of the reality of having a traumatic brain injury. And I read this and hear this from a lot of different people, and that is that um, like I can be seen, and
Mhm.
I, people would not look at me and say, "Oh, you must have a brain injury." And people who know me, many will say, "Oh, you look fine." And it was troubling for me, particularly in the first several years, because I was not fine. I had serious injuries, but I did look okay. And so I was between this position, which I think is a particularly often female position, and also had to do somewhat with my temperament, which is to be quiet, to not, intrude my life in somebody else's conversation, and just accept things more or less as they come, not always.
Mhm.
So I was not one to particularly speak out about myself. Having traumatic brain injury, I wanted people to understand that I have something, and it can't be seen, but it's very serious. And here are the things that limit my life. And at first I was very outspoken about it and a little strident. I've learned to
I hear
be
you.
a
In
little
there.
mellow about it. But it is that, teeter totter between being quiet, and sometimes that's very important, and really wanting to talk about this reality and all that it involves, and the everydayness and the reality. For me and for most people, I think, is that this is a forever situation. This is an am I all better? This is what I've learned, how I accommodate, how I manage, whatever, but it's not over. And there are millions of people like us walking around. And I just want to be a voice that says, you don't know who you just talked to and what they're dealing with. So don't assume that that person isn't struggling.
Well, so true. And with everything with the invisible illness, and exactly. And
Yeah.
you earlier in the book, later in the book as well, you had put the person can clearly be seen, but not accessed.
Yeah.
And it's again, that just really hit me. Yes, like you can see us, we're here. Maybe we went to that dinner party last weekend, but then we couldn't function until for 5 days later. Right. And yes, people don't know that. And yes, we don't want to focus on all the negatives, but it's yes, it's a mind-blowing world to go from living your life and having, going through and being able to do X, Y, and Z. And then suddenly, with everyone being in different situations and what they've gone through, but to then have all that loss, there's a certain amount of grief that goes around it and needing that support system. And so tell us whatever you would like to tell about the actual injury and where you'd like to go there.
Sure. I begin the book with that, as you know, and it's kind of an abrupt beginning. And my wife has counseled me not to begin conversations like that because it's a little
Thank
stunt.
goodness for our sidekicks that can.
Actually, was talking to a new primary care physician, and she said, "Well, similar to you, how did you get a traumatic brain injury?" And I just spit it out, and
Mhm.
recoiled. So the more gentle lead into the story is that I went to Washington for the inauguration of President Obama, the first inauguration, and it was very exciting. Unlike right now in the United States, where the inauguration we're about to have is only exciting in a terrifying way.
Mhm.
Could happen. But this was just thrilling, and I was beside myself with joy. And my daughter at that point lived in Washington, very close to the White House and very close to a metro stop. And I decided I would take the metro, 10-minute drive, to just feel as much of the spice of being in Washington at that time. I grew up in a city. I considered myself city wise. I grew up in San Francisco. I got off the metro and I was walking toward her house, which was only a few minutes away. And I could see her house, and then I felt something. I didn't feel anything. It wasn't painful. I didn't feel much. I thought it might have been a bird that, you know, dropped a seed or something. So I looked up, and it wasn't even a second, it was a fraction of a second, and I can almost still feel that feeling. I believed I was going to die. I saw a man, uh, and he was right next to me. I didn't see what was in his hand, but I knew that I was in grave danger. And then I don't really remember much except little pieces. What I learned a week later was that he had beaten me with a hammer, and my skull was fractured and my hands were broken. And one doctor told me that it was like I had given a very healthy blood donation. I'd lost so much blood. Fortunately, it was Washington before the inauguration. It was close to one of the best trauma hospitals in the country, and everybody was available because of the inauguration. And the doctors saved my life. They operated immediately and saved my life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
The results are pretty extreme, and my
Mhm.
recovery, doctors have called it a miracle because of the severity of the damage,
Yeah.
and didn't expect I'd be able to walk or talk. It was my frontal lobe, and there still is the imprint of a hammer on the side of my head. Um, but I'm how you hear me, and,
Mhm.
and I am very passionate about the need to understand people to understand two things. One is traumatic brain injury, that so many people and so many of the service people who have particularly served in Iraq and Afghanistan have come home with, and how debilitating it is. And the other is violence. That I am a blessed person who grew up wonderful family. I never experienced or saw any form of violence. I was and am one of these people that was completely loved and never imagined any reality other than that I always had a safety net. And to experience random violence uh, has rearranged my nervous system. I hear a noise or something. It's not a thought, it's just a body reaction. And so uh, I have a passion for talking about and exploring what violence does to people, not only random violence, but violence that people have experienced on an ongoing basis. And at least in the United States, the ongoing violence that
Mhm.
people of color experience because of living in this country where they're never safe. They're never safe. And what that does, I know a tiny bit of what trauma has done to me.
Mhm.
It really helped me when I went back into the classroom. And I just understood so much more than I did, and was a very, very good teacher. and very loved, but ignorant about what the experience is of people who enter with trauma. And in fact, we're all ignorant about the experience that anybody has. And
True.
to just realize that one is not knowing and have humility about it and enter situations with that sense of, I don't know. I'm sorry if I make a mistake. I don't know. But I know that we need to find connections before there's safety. And
Mhm.
so those are my missions in terms of writing. I was an educator for almost 40 years. And so I understand how to engage people in a learning process, and
Mhm.
have been able
I
to.
enjoyed reading that in your book when you did talk about how you were able to apply that empathy and understanding to your students later. And even, from with going through a brain injury, someone that hasn't been through it, like you don't understand how difficult it is to even just fill out simple paperwork that
Yes,
would appear simple. You're going to I was going to say DMV because I'm speaking with an American driver's license, but simple things like that, that if you have never experienced that level of cognitive deficits, right, and being able to comprehend, and just to as a person to have anxiety when you see a form being put in front of you, it's, but you look like you're fine. What do you can't fill out this form? What are and that's the thing, that there's so much with the whole invisible illness,
yes,
passion, understanding. Um, and for you, as you mentioned, definitely it would be that constant state of flight or fight or flight, and
right.
being in that, when you're gone through dealing with a violent assault like that. Um, and um, and so, and yeah, and I really appreciate just how you want your readers to feel and what you want them to get out of it.
Yeah, well, that's my hope for the book. Both it was very important for me to write it, but I remember when I was able to read again and sort of have enough focus to read, I wanted to hear people's stories who had experiences similar to mine. I didn't need to read research, or not that that material
Mhm.
is important and interesting, but I wanted to know, well, what has somebody else experienced? And I had a very hard time finding it. So I hope that my book would at least be one piece that people could pick up and find themselves in, not in every situation, but say, yeah, that's what it's like, or yo, I didn't know that that can happen too, or whatever, something that helps get through the day, and also helps to kind of humanize and normalize that.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that there's something wrong because you can't fill out that form or can't remember or have to ask 7 times.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
wanted readers to know, who don't have the experience, there's no way to really know, but to really try not to embarrass somebody or shame them. Or, to say, oh, that's really easy. It'll only take you a minute. Like, what's wrong with you? Well, you don't know. And I don't necessarily want to say I have a brain injury,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be challenged or made fun of or chastised because I don't do something as easily as I used to.
Definitely. And even, I mean, with socializing and social interactions, there's so many ways that we can feel those deficits. So it can definitely affect how we show up socially.
Exactly.
Um, we all get a pass at that right now with having to stay home and that, but we can look at the bright side of it that way. But but yeah, it really, yes, the support system is imperative. The having the people that you can be yourself and know that you're not going to be judged, and
Right.
they offer the right amount of support that we need. And for writing, I mean, I've always said for myself, when I had a Pilates studio for, it was 11 years at the time, and that's when I got a concussion. And so when I knew I was going to have to downsize the studio, well, I thought I was going to downsize at that point, but I eventually moved it to my home. When I realized there was a book opportunity to write a chapter and be involved in a book that was coming out, that we actually ended up being a bestseller, got it to that bestseller list.
Oh,
It was, yeah, and so fun just again to have this other community of people that are, having their dreams and reaching for their goals. And I always just felt like I have to search for things to help me feel productive and positive,
yes.
whatever that was. And obviously that changed at, different times and different levels. But I remember one of the optometrists that I saw her for a year and a half, and some of the things I would do online or on the computer or on the whatever, maybe other people, there's no way they would want to read or be in a screen. But she would say, it's okay, just do whatever feels light and easy for you. If it's bringing you joy and you're feeling productive, go for it. And then make sure you're pacing and, doing all the things before and after. But I find, yeah, and for myself, just holding on to that thought that this didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And that's what I wrote about in that chapter,
Mm.
was, being able to look at these horrible things that can happen in the moment, and then how can we turn around and make keep going and still serve and still, try to provide some inspiration for others, and just being able to find ways internally that we can save our mental health and still find ways that we can just, yes, feel productive and positive.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure the book was all that and more for you, I'm sure.
Has been. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Good. So where are you mostly? So the book, as we mentioned, it is, when you're looking for it on Amazon, JoAnne Silver Jones, Headstrong, Surviving a Traumatic Brain Injury. You must get it. I've been happy, sad, tears of joy, tears of heartfelt, just my goodness, what you went through and all. I mean, it's so much more than that, the violent attack, as we're sitting here at the beginning of January and everything that's going on. It's there's so many other layers, and you have to read the book to understand what I'm saying here, even with your dealings with the police and investigation.
Right.
Just feeling things through that, it was a lot of emotion. So it was a really amazing read. I'm so glad you put the book out there, and were able to get all your supports and help to make it happen. Because sometimes we can sit on these dreams, but it's one thing to have the dream, but then to actually follow through and make it a success is, I really applaud you for that.
That's another so important part of my own healing. I start the book, and my injury started with an assault, but it doesn't end. That is not the ending, and of the book, and certainly not of my life. And I think completing a project, completing something that I'm so proud of, completing something that my children and family are so proud of, is very powerful, and has given me access to a world that I didn't know about. I feel my life could have been good without knowing about it. We don't get to make those choices. Things happen, and that's not necessarily, every second is not in our power. But when it happens, then what do we do? And that's where I feel I've gotten so much from the process of writing and talking to folks like you. And I've met amazing people who are doing all kinds of things in the world with their experiences with brain injuries. And I'm thrilled to be in that world.
Yes, it's a very supportive community. So it's good to be there for each other. And, we have a special understanding for the ups and downs of going through writing and book launch and just putting yourself out there and trying to pace for how much you're on the computer and socializing. And yeah, it's a lot. So as I said, congratulations. I'm super proud of you and excited and so happy to have met you. Where can people find you online?
People can go to my website, which is www.JoAnneJonesAuthor.com. They can find me on medium.com, JoAnne Jones. I have a website, and I'm on Instagram and on Twitter. And each of those sites leads back to my website, and the book can also be purchased on my website. So
I was going
there's
to ask you, is that the best place to get it, through your website or through Amazon? Or go right to your website?
people prefer.
Okay. And actually, if they go to your website, they can sign up for your email list.
That's correct.
Right. Yep.
Get my newsletter and other updates. And I do not have a digital option on my website. So if people want to read Kindle, it needs to be Amazon. And
Okay.
at some point in the hopefully near future, I'll be putting on Audible books as well, because I know one of the issues with brain injuries is being unable to focus to read. So
yeah,
bit of an irony, but I will get it on Audible as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And yes, I have my Kindle copy. And as I said, it's a must read. I really urge everyone that's watching to go and get that book. Speaking of email list, if you're not on my email list yet, please go to imbalancepilates.ca. I do have a free training on gratitude, goals, Pilates, and posture. And I do also have a sign up there. I've got some book projects coming up this year, and I'm looking for some people in the post-concussion brain injury world to contribute to some of the book projects that I have going on. We talked a bit about that before we went live here today. So be sure to reach out to me if you'd like more information on that. Be sure to share out this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Definitely hit that subscribe button. We'd love to let you be notified for other things that are coming out. And yeah, so I just wanted to say again, JoAnne, thank you so much for showing up, for being able to do this interview with me today. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the feature interview series. And again, congrats with the book. I absolutely have been loved it, am loving it. And I hope everyone gets their copy. You will enjoy it. And yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for doing the work you do and for helping me to be part of it. I so appreciate that.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. My pleasure. So we will talk soon. So everyone have a lovely day, and we will sign off for now.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.